Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. I'm glad you're with us today. Whether you're joining us live during this recorded session, watching us on YouTube, or listening to the podcast, we're glad you're with us today. Thanks for spending 2 of your 3 precious commodities with us, your attention and time, no money required. I want to thank a couple of our sponsors, which would be Lightheart Sanders, the CPA firm that we partner with quite a bit, and who also is a great collaborator when it comes to the P&L study and some of our other data work. So shout out to Lightheart Sanders, also Qnity, as also sponsoring this forum, also a great partner of ours. So thanks to them. But thanks to you, and here we are. I'm going to timestamp this for you. This is the week after Thanksgiving, and we hope all of you had a nice Thanksgiving and that you were in the spirit of thanks and giving, as this is the season of thanks and giving, specifically and literally within our 8 seasons calendar. Today, I'm going to bring to the mic and the camera our guest today, Candice Gliatto. But before I do that, I want to kind of frame the conversation today. So here we are, early December, and next year is on all of our minds. And Candice and I worked together very, very, very closely throughout the years. And so anyway, let's bring you to the camera here, and have you give us a warm welcome on this early morning for you. You must have gotten forced out the door.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. You're in California time, so thanks for joining us. You are a regular to this forum, but this is going to be a little bit more of a spotlight on Candice. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me. It's actually been a while since I've joined for Lightbulb Moments. I was thinking this morning, it's been, I think, a couple of years. It's been a minute. So,
Yeah, well, you bailed me out several times in the early days when I didn't have a guest, and it was like, hey, you available tomorrow at 8 o'clock? And you're like, sure, 8 o'clock your time. So anyway, yes, you are a guest today, and we have spent, I don't know if our audience knows this, but we have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours together. You, myself, Heath Smith, many cases with Michelle Schuster, sometimes without, but we've worked very closely together over the last 3 years since you became the director of training and development at Qnity, and it's always a joy to work with you. So,
well, thank you. It's an awesome opportunity, honestly. Not just because I get such a cool role with Qnity, but it supports me in my other role too, because I learn so much from our community and I get challenged to start thinking about what's next, and it really supports my own growth in my own business too. And so the two things, I love having my 2 hats side by side here. And
well,
today I'm going to be wearing both of them, right?
yeah, today you're going to be wearing both those hats. So we're going to be having some conversations that directly relate to your business,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Citrus Salons,
Mm-hmm.
located in Martinez, California, and Portland, Oregon. So that makes you a multi-location salon owner. So that's one hat. And leading a small business is not easy for anyone. But then the other hat you wear is our director of training and development. So your direct interface with all of our coaches as well as many of our clients, and that. So now, in the interest of full disclosure to our audience, we had scheduled a prep session yesterday, and neither one of us bothered to review what went out to our community about what we're going to talk about. And we came up with a completely different topic. But we will come back to the advertised topic, which was how far you've come, a refreshingly honest conversation about milestone surprises and plot twists that have come from growing a business like yours, from a baby salon to an industry standout, and a little bit about your journey, celebration, revelation, and the different things what it really takes to grow a business. So we will cover all those areas. It's just that wasn't really what we got as excited about. Okay.
I told you I could talk about anything, and I could definitely talk about that. So you tell me what we're going to talk about today, and I've got lots to share. I always love to.
Well, I think what really inspired me is a topic that is relevant to everybody, and we will certainly get into some of these things I just mentioned that went into the description. But um, every everybody's in a planning state of mind right now.
Yeah.
And regardless of where they are, you cannot deny that I think we are 28 days from flipping the calendar into a new year. And regardless of how much you've done to this point, you're probably still thinking about next, you think, because I am as a small business owner, you are too.
Yep.
But when we had this conversation, something really jumped out at me and something we've never really talked about in our planning systems. Now, I'm going to frame this a little bit. So, Qnity has a planning system, and it's really made up of time-based tools called 8 seasons, as well as how you layer in 5 functions. So 8 seasons and 5 functions is a core part of our methodology. Most of our clients use that methodology for planning. We probably could do it a little bit more practice what we preach within Qnity, but we'll save that for another a guilt session.
Hey,
Um,
we've got our planning session coming up next week. We're doing it.
we do, yes,
Yeah.
we're in good shape. But you said something to me yesterday that
Yeah.
really stuck with me, and that's where I want to go first.
Yeah.
And this whole idea, I said, so tell me about your planning process, in Citrus. And
Yeah.
it's where you start that inspired me. So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, so I have I'm pretty committed to this ritual of getting myself focused before I start to get into the details of what I want to see. And so as it relates to New Year planning, really around October, September, October, I start mentally living in January, right? And I know that that sounds crazy because I'm thinking about the next year during our peak season, but I'm just going to challenge everybody to think about this for a second is, our peak season, for the most part, although it's busy, at least in my business, is a little bit of a plug and play. I know the things that I'm going to do. I know the events. I've got the team holiday party. I've got the sales during the small business Saturday. It's really kind of locked in, and I repeat that every year because it works. And so that gives me some space to start thinking about innovation for the year to come. Now, where that starts, which is what your question was, is with me. And so this is something that I have adopted in the past, first being introduced several years, it's been 8 years now of, using the 8 seasons, 5 functions planning system. In the past, I would dive right into the calendar. Over the last 5 years or so, I've learned that that calendar is actually step number two. And step number one is this focusing session that I have with myself. And so I start with, well, I use our 3 C's method. I start by getting closure. And so I start to think about, okay, what have the first 10 months of the year really looked like? What are the things that have worked really well? What are the things that have not been very effective? What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? What are the curveballs that got thrown my way? What were the lessons that I've learned? And I just dump all of that out on a piece of paper, a 9 grid, because it's me. And of course, I use a 9 grid. And it really helps me to kind of clarify, like, hey, what happened this year and how did I get to where I'm at right now? Then I can start thinking about things that I don't want, things that I do want, all of that. And then I move into, okay, what do I want from my business in the year to come? So in this case, 2026, what am I looking for? And that's where the next 9 grid starts. And there are some things that are really tangible, like I want to hit a certain revenue goal, a certain profitability goal. And then there are other things that are related to maybe my time, right? Or my attention or the way that I feel about my business. We talk about results a lot because they're really important, but the other thing is, I'm very emotionally connected to my business and I have a lot of pride. I'm very pride motivated. And so if something's off in my business, what do I want to do to feel more proud of my salon? And so those are the things that I start thinking about. I start putting them on paper, and those are my big rocks. So what that serves as is really my North Star. And then 8 seasons and all of the action that I'm going to take to make that vision that I just got out of my head and on paper come to fruition, that's the next layer, right? I can't jump straight into a social media marketing calendar or a system change, right? I have to think about the result that I want for me and for my business ultimately. So that's where it starts.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, and we don't talk about it very much. And where I've seen a very real maybe issue around this is at times, I'm actually thinking about last year at the end of January, we pulled together, I think it was 4 different companies. We had like a multi-meetup, multi-location salons where we did our 2-day execution program. And owners were in the room right along with key leaders. And in many cases, the owners felt off guard because they didn't really come into that meeting with their North Star, the things that were really important to them. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, all right, continue.
Yeah, so again, having that in place is important, right? Because bye, honey. Saying bye to Forrest, he's going to school. Having that in place is really important because what you can do is you can get in a room with your leaders, and I have leaders that are deeply engaged in the growth and success of my business. So, but they'll start kind of throwing their ideas without thinking about this big picture, right? Because nobody thinks about their business like the owner, right? And then it's a little bit of like trying to keep up with all these things and you lose that focus. So I always make sure that it starts with me. And then I go to my right hand, which is Ashley, who's my GM of both locations. And I share with her. I go, this is what I'm wanting from the business. And sometimes she has some things to add to it or most of the time because she's so action oriented. She's such a doer. She's like, well, what if we did this to do that? And then the planning process starts. But ultimately, the two people, her and I, that are going to push most of the work that is going to happen in the business to the finish line are on the same page because I have, that prep.
Share with your level of comfort some
Yeah.
things that were on your list, because some of them are really just, they are a little more feelings based, share
Yeah.
share what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, I'll share the whole thing. I've got my 9 grid right here, and look, it's not full too. I try and like really zoom out. I don't need to have 8 goals to fill a whole 9 grid. I really want to think what is it that I need, and so I have a revenue and a profitability goal for both businesses and both businesses combined. Okay, and then I have a pride this year. My goals are very pride based. I am seeing an opportunity as it relates to customer experience and perception of the business, right? And so for me, it's an elevated guest experience that's still in line with our brand, right? Because my brand and my business is like kind of like fun and silly and playful, but we want to elevate it while maintaining that. So what does that look like, right? And then other things. My team is really connected to my GM, Ashley, and they go to her for every single question all the time. Yet I have all kinds of other managers in place that can answer these questions. So another goal I have is to kind of wean my team off of Ashley. That way she can focus on these higher level things. And then the other goal, big goal that I have is really around continuing to engage my team in their own individual goals And so we have all kinds of things in place, but I'm really looking to connect the dots quarter in, quarter out to an ultimate goal for every single one of my team members. And so really, really engaging them because my team happens to be more engaged with the growth of the salon than themselves, which is wonderful. We have a growth culture, but I really want them to start thinking about how they can challenge themselves to push them to the next level of their career. So that's my vision. And everything that's going to show up in marketing, education, human capital, operations, and finance is going to be all pointed in the direction of making that come together.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. You used the words growth culture. What does a
Yeah.
growth culture mean to you?
Yeah. So I use these words a lot, but it's really about creating a community that is focused in on the same thing, right? On common goals. And so, how do I connect my team with the goals of the company and the entire team, right? And so this is something that I feel like we have done a really good job at with Citrus. Our team knows what our annual revenue goal is. Every single team member knows, right? Our team knows what our profitability goal is. And
Mhm.
they know that I make decisions based on that goal. That said, I also make goals for what their individual income increase year over year looks like. That way, it's not just, okay, I'm focused on this for the salon. I'm also focused on this in general for the team. And so everybody's connected to that. And it's a dialogue that's always happening. And what it does is it creates a lot of opportunity to explain the why behind decision making because we know it's all in an effort to reach those big goals. I mean, these goals that are on my 9 grade will be shared with my whole team too, Maybe not some of the details of them, but the big ones will. So that's what a growth culture means to me.
Is growth, the word growth synonymous with revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
In my mind, it is. It's revenue. And then I do think I no, yes, it is when I'm talking about it at Qnity. When I'm talking about it at Citrus, it's not just revenue, it's also growth in career development, whether it's technical or professional or new skill sets, things like that. It's just keeping everybody kind of with their foot on the gas.
Yeah. So you mentioned the three C's, which is a Qnity concept, clarity, closure, clarity, and confidence.
Hmm.
And you used that methodology with two C's, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, the core, if you're going to pick the two C's, it's closure and clarity.
Yeah.
Confidence is a byproduct. It happens as a result of them. So it sounds like you've got your clarity for next year in terms
Hmm.
of some of the North Star type things, really like strategic focus. I also would call it.
Yeah.
I love you've got some very clear metrics, revenue and profit, of course,
Yeah.
the engine of any business, right? And then you
Yeah.
got customer service. You've got GM focus, and then you've got connecting to individual goals quarterly. What about on the closure side? Anything, closure can also be areas of they could be positive and they could be negative.
Oh, closure from last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there was a big shift in the last year in our industry, and this is me with my coaching hat and my salon owner hat because I've seen a lot of others have experienced a similar shift.
Hmm.
When I think back, maybe not even just last year, but the last few years about kind of what salon leaders had to prioritize to create sustainability in their business, um, it hasn't been 100%. Let me see. I don't know how to say this the right way. It hasn't been really 100%, at least in my experience, client focused. It's been very staff focused, right? Like, okay, autonomy and schedule and timing and all these things and increase prices and make sure everybody's making lots of money, make sure we can cover our overhead. The needs of the salon and staff have been prioritized, at least in my business, a little bit higher than the needs of the client. Well, this last year, the client's dollar has started speaking a little bit louder, right? Like people are spreading their appointments out. They want to have a really high value experience. And so, have we elevated our own customer care to the degree that we've elevated our pricing and all of these other things that serve the best interests of the business? Maybe not as much as we need to. And so that's the closure piece for me is okay, I am feeling in a better position to standardize some processes in my business and challenge my team to be uncomfortable than I have been for the last 5 years or so because things are shifting. And here's the thing, it's not, oh, I have the upper hand now because people want to work for an employee-based salon or because there's less clients. It's because my team is seeing, okay, things are slowing down a little bit. We have to pivot and we have to do something different. And so as we implement more specific policies for the ways that we approach customer care, they're on board because they see the need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's been kind of like the big light bulb for, getting closure on 2025 is okay, that needs to take a little bit of a backseat compared to client needs because ultimately, if we don't have clients or a healthy flow of clients coming in and out of the business, then we're not going to be sustainable. So,
Yeah. So it's a move from staff to client-centric.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And, in a labor-intensive industry that there's been some very real human capital challenges,
yeah,
shorter tenure, shorter hours, much more mobile workforce, alternative ways to hang a shingle and all that. There's definitely been pressure on employee-based salons to justify becoming staff-centric. Um,
yeah.
but what you're saying is that maybe the pendulum has swung a little too far.
Yeah, I think I don't know that it has swung too far. It's just that it swung and it needs to swing the other way to create balance, you
Oh,
know? And so it's just time for a shift to put as much weight into the client side of the business as I have into the innovation and the pricing and the making your staff happy and all those things. And no regrets, right? It's not like my clients are like, "Oh, I hate you guys now." No, there's nothing like that happening. It's very, very subtle.
yeah.
And everything that I did, I've retained my entire staff. So for 3 years now. So I'm glad that those things happened, and it's just time to start shifting. And I think it's the time that will be comfortable for my team.
What would you say to those that have not had the same staff for 3 years and they've had the volatility and, um, you know,
I, it's it's interesting. It's hard. Those things are hard, right? And so, um, well, one, I should say, I had perfect staff retention for 3 years, but I did lose somebody a couple weeks ago, so I'm not perfect. I do need to say that, okay? Um, but one, you know, I feel like there was a cycling through people that maybe didn't need to be in the business anymore that hit, and I hate to keep going back to like the post-COVID era. It wasn't really then, it was more like a couple years after. And that was when we really saw like a big shift. And I think a lot of salon leaders did everything that they could. They kind of went into desperation mode to hold on to those people. And we've seen that. We've seen that in the P&L study with, commission rates and things like that. And then ultimately, we didn't really meet the need. And so I guess my advice would be like, kind of be okay with that shift happening and be ready to rebuild it because once you do, which I did a few years ago, you're gonna have a dream team and you're not gonna feel pinned against the wall anymore of like, oh, I can't control my business because it's at the mercy of this team. So, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. There's really nothing you can do. That's
yeah,
kind of how I feel.
right on. Okay. All right, let's pivot a little bit into some other areas that are outside of planning and being in a planning state of mind and starting with yourself, and then looking at areas of closure, areas of clarity for next year, then involving your team, using the 8 seasons calendar, all that kind of stuff, and move into a little bit more about how far you've come, and some of the milestones, surprises, and plot twists. So uh, and use the word baby salon. So for those of our listeners that don't really know you, and they would love sort of a introductory journey, introduction into your journey. So let's go back, and why do you use the word baby salon in terms of how you started?
Yeah, well, because it was really small. It was really small. So, yeah, I started doing hair when I was 17. Like I graduated high school, went straight to beauty school. And my high school boyfriend's mom was also in beauty school with me. I don't even know if you know this part of my story, okay?
No.
So her name's Hope. And so she had had several business ventures throughout her life. And so she and one of my instructors opened a little salon together. I graduated 6 months later and I ended up buying out the instructor because they didn't get along. Okay. And so I had this little rental studio in downtown Martinez that was like really, really tiny with my high school ex-boyfriend by that point, because it's high school's mom. Weird situation. But she taught me how to like kind of manage my money and inventory and things like that when I was 17 years old. So I was a business owner at 18 years old. Okay. And I genuinely had no idea what I was doing, but I was pretty committed to figuring it out. Now, eventually, her and I went separate ways because she was doing hair as kind of a transition into retirement, and I was just getting started. And so we left our little place, and I took she bought me out and moved the business to her backyard. And then I took my buyout money, which was $3,000. And I decided I'm going to save this and I'm going to keep growing it and I'm going to open Citrus. And so I found a little hole in the wall that was even smaller than the first one. And that was the first Citrus. And it was like, I think it was like 400 square feet. And everything inside it, because I had zero money, everything inside it was like outside of the hair equipment was like furniture and art and decor that I literally stole from my house because I didn't have anything to invest in it. And me and my friends and my grandpa just kind of DIY'd it and opened a salon. And from there, it's just been learn as you go.
Mm.
So that is the baby salon.
Well, you talk about your journey with money and profitability,
Yeah.
and fundamental event for you was really not being able to cover payroll, and
Yeah.
how that changed the trajectory of things for you. So,
Yeah. So I switched so I was in that spot, the first citrus, baby citrus, for about a year. And I had this woman named Tessa who came and she rented the other chair from me. And her and I just we rocked it. We both had the same idea of how we wanted to grow our business, what we wanted our clients to feel like when they were in there. And within a year, both of us were totally booked. We got really involved in the community, which I still do, and we were killing it. And so around a year in, this landlord from a property up the street that had a salon, it was kind of like one of those like cute like old lady salons where they get the rollers and stuff. They were closing, and the landlord asked me if I wanted the space. And so I said, yeah, okay. I just say yes to everything. That's just how I operate. So I said, yeah, I did it. And that's teenage citrus. So that was our middle spot. And when we moved there, we got a third renter. And that was when I realized, oh my gosh, renting is not for me because although this person was lovely, they weren't aligned. And so I went employee based from there and I hired Adam, who was my first employee I ever had. He always tells me that that he was my guinea pig. I definitely learned a lot about being a leader on Adam for sure. but moved there and then hired a team. And yeah, I had some issues managing money, people, all of that that I had to work through. That would probably be an hour and a half story, but
You really didn't have the training. I mean, you went,
no.
17 right into it. And then so fast forward to today and all those lessons and surprises and plot twists and all have led you to two locations, two different states, and haven't set a business up so that it's not totally dependent on you. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not just the currency of money for you and how money has become more real for you and you're great at managing money. I mean, I always talk about the streak that you and Ashley have about meeting every single week, your weekly finance meeting, which we teach our clients to do. And you've done that. I don't know how many consecutive weeks now. I mean, it's
Oh gosh, I'd have to count, but 500 or something, very, very long time.
yeah,
Years and 8 years, something like that.
yeah, it's probably 350 to 400 consecutive weeks. And so you brought this discipline and all of this self-taught or taught through mentors, coaches, and whoever. Um, and so now you're in a situation where you're able to have that balance. The money piece, I mean, the money piece comes and goes. There's good years, there's bad years, and all of that, but you've always been a very profitable salon, which is great. But the time element for you and going into next year, we looked at the currency of like, planning and how that relates with performance. But from a time standpoint, are there some rituals that you can share with our audience that it really have been part of your journey?
Well, I was gonna say, rituals is kind of like that's how I function. Everything is a ritual. And so, you were mentioning being kind of self-taught, like in a way, that is a major weakness that I had as I was getting up and going, but it was also a strength because I didn't just do it the way that the salon I used to work at did it. Because I didn't know, I didn't have that reference point. And so I really did get to create kind of my own way of operating. And what I picked up by just being a sponge and going to a lot of classes and taking a lot of training and coaching and things like that is like all the don't do that, or I wish I hadn't done that, or make sure you do this, keep your payroll at 45%, all those things that I could have missed, I didn't. And so, those are structures that I am like religious about. And then as it relates to time, really as it relates to everything, time, money, bandwidth, I have like a set of rules that I follow. And a lot of it has to do with like a weekly touch base. Like I have 3 weekly touch bases, one with Ashley on Monday, one with, and that's the finance one. We talk about other things too. One with my Portland team and one with my Martinez team. And we do that every single week, which keeps us aligned so nothing falls through the cracks. And then I have my own rituals with time where I have a, a lot of this comes from closure. So a lot of people ask me how I get a lot done because, by the way, I have Qnity, I have the salons, and then I'm the president of our Downtown Merchant Association here in Martinez. And then I'm also on the executive board of a of an independent baseball team, super random, but here in my town. And then I also serve as like a city liaison with city council, things like that. So I'm busy. And the best practice that I have to be able to manage that time is everything that I do on Friday. Okay, so Friday is the most important day of the week because as I close the week, I create my to-do list for the next week, which helps me not lose momentum over the weekend, right? I'm not like, oh, where was I? So I have my to-do list for the next week. I carry it over, and on Monday I just hit the ground running. Like that's how I do it. The other thing that I do is I time block. So I have like my days that I'm dedicated to Qnity, and I'm off the radar for other things. My days that I'm dedicated to Citrus, my blocks of time that I'm dedicated to focus time. All of that has to be on the calendar. Otherwise, I won't do it.
great practices. And I wasn't even aware of all these other things you're doing. I knew you're very involved in your community. And I think one of the reasons you're so successful is because of the community focus goes all the way back from the very beginning for you,
Yeah.
in Martinez, which is a relatively small town in the Bay Area. You can describe Martinez better than myself.
Yeah, we're about the halfway point between like Oakland and Napa. It's about 40,000 people, pretty small town. Um, but we're right in the downtown area of it, historic area, and the community here is really close knit, and so they respond really well to people that give back, and so we've just been riding that wave for 16 years, and yeah, I'll never stop doing that. It also gives me a lot of, it fulfills me, you know. So there's the business and then there's the impact that the business has, not just on the clients and on hair and team members, but just on our greater community. And that's something that creates a lot of that pride that is kind of my motivating factor. And so it's important to me.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Candice, I mean, you certainly put me in a bit of a different planning state of mind yesterday and allowed me to reframe some of the things that I'm going to be doing in the upcoming days here, which I'm grateful for. And it's always fun to hear about your journey and that your lessons along the way and your insights. You're a dynamo, and I think everybody sees that. So we're just so pleased to be able to work with you. I know our clients all love you. Everybody loves you. So let's everybody give Candice a virtual round of applause. Bravo.
Thank
Um,
you.
and
Thanks
then
for having
uh, and then I don't know how many of these you have now, but you probably have a whole wall of them. So
me. I got a few.
you got a few. All right. Well, thanks
Forrest
everybody.
loves them.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And again, give Candice a little bit of a shout out there, virtual shout out, or put a
Thank
note,
you.
comment there. And we will see you in an upcoming session. And we hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. And we're looking forward to having a great holiday season together with you. So we'll see you in an upcoming episode. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye.